Now that we've learned the basic chords that are used throughout the House of the Rising Sun, the solo arrangement, let's dive in and check out some of the right hand patterns. And we're using, instead of our thumb just going across all the strings, we're using a combination of thumb, index, and middle finger. And a basic pattern, if you just played on open strings for the right hand, is to play thumb on the lowest two strings and index on the second and middle on the high string, and do a 6/8 pattern, or 12/8 if you count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All we're doing is groups of 3 notes, ascending, then descending. Strings go 4, 3, 2, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Thumb, thumb, index, middle, index, thumb, thumb. So thumb's covering 2 notes. You could easily use thumb, index, middle, ring as well. That would work throughout most of the piece. But I want to focus on, for starters, just using 3 fingers. So the thumb is going to work a little harder by playing the 2 lowest strings. Now if we plug in the first set of sequence of chords that we looked at, and all throughout the piece, any sequence of chords, you could just practice that pattern. It's not going to bring out the melody always, but it is going to fill in a lot of the accompaniment space. That's the basic idea of the accompaniment. It's going to keep going back to those patterns. So check this out. I'll play the D minor, F, G, B flat, D minor, A7, and D minor using that fingering, the chords we first looked at from the top of the piece. And play along if you want to get the music out and take a look. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. Thumb, thumb, index, middle, index, thumb, all the way through. Then we set up the melody at that point. So see how I'm using thumb, thumb, index, middle, index, thumb. Try that just on the D minor chord. When that's comfortable, move up to the next shape. Just stay there for a while. Get the feel of that. Hear the clarity of each note. Move that up 2 frets. Now big jump all the way down to the 7th fret, and then 5th position, 7, 5, 6, 8. Right, no bar chord here. Then put the bar back. The D minor chord, stay there for a second. Go down to the A7 shape, or A really. There's no 7th in it, it's just the A chord. Then back to D minor. Now jump down to the lower A chord with the pinky in there. 2, 1, 3, 0, but using the pinky on the 2nd string. That'll set up the melody coming in there. So that's a basic arpeggio pattern that's used. When the melody comes in, because we're playing that very distinctive theme, we're going to have to shift that into this arpeggio pattern. So we get this. That's the first phrase. So we're setting up a D minor chord at measure 5, and you can use your thumb, 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 index, index, index. One thought is you repeat fingers on strings. I often like to alternate fingers whenever there are different notes, but the tempo is slow enough here where you can do that. So in that sense, for a lot of the song, we're going to assign those fingers that we've used before for the arpeggio to those certain strings. Thumb on the lowest 2 strings, index on the 2nd, middle on the high string. Index, thumb, middle. Here, thumb and index. Thumb, index, middle, index, thumb. Thumb and index. Thumb, index, middle, thumb. Thumb, middle, then thumb and middle. Index, middle, then middle's going to play again as we jump down. And that that jump in measure 7 is a challenge because we have to play the 5th fret and get right down to the 3rd. So I'd suggest practicing your shifts with the left hand to get those smooth. Then thumb and middle, thumb, index, middle. So you can keep that same pattern going with the right hand throughout most of it. Now here, the end of measure 9, we have a series of 3 notes in a row on the same string. Instead of using one finger there, I definitely think that alternating index, or middle and the high string, then index, middle, index would be really nice. So measure 9, thumb and index, index, middle, index with thumb. Then right back to our usual playing there. Then another measure that's a little different from our normal pattern. If you get to 11, instead of going thumb, thumb, index, thumb, thumb, middle, thumb, thumb, using that pattern, I find it nice to move down to the next lower set of strings and use your index on the 3rd, thumb on the 4th, then middle on the 2nd. So we're shifting one set of strings down with our fingers. Then middle on the high string, then index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle. So we're just going over and over again. Index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle, index, thumb, middle. Then back to our normal pattern. So it just breaks from the pattern just for a moment there. This is all very straightforward. This is just a vamp between the melody phrases. Measure 14, same pattern, thumb, thumb, index, middle, index, thumb. Then measure 15, we jump down with the thumb on the 3rd string. Thumb, index, middle, repeat middle, index, thumb, 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 index, middle, index, middle, then middle with thumb. The next melody statement. Now we're back to our normal sort of philosophy here using the set fingerings. Repeat middle there, middle, middle with thumb. So this can stay consistent all the way through. Shift here, 4th fret just for a moment. Thumb, middle, 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 index, index and thumb. Now this measure, measure 22, is kind of similar to measure 11, where you could use index, middle, index, or index, thumb, index, middle, index, middle. You can shift down a set of strings. That works nicely there. So now middle's covering the 2nd and the high string, just for that one measure. Then back, measure 23, we're back home. Different chord shapes, but thumb, thumb, index, middle, index, thumb. Same pattern. Then this is very familiar. The first ending is just like the last, where we roll that chord. And there, I sneak my ring finger in, go thumb, thumb, index, ring. Just for that one chord at the end of the first ending and 2nd ending, towards the end of the piece. So if you take the first ending, then you repeat back to measure 5, and so on. And then you go all the way through to measure 25, you jump to the 2nd ending and play the ending. Now another option for that last chord, you could use your thumb to brush through the notes, arpeggiate, or roll with the fingers. So that's the House of the Rising Sun, looking at the left hand fingerings and the right hand arpeggio patterns. Have fun with this one, and I'll be back soon.